It's the HBO docuseries being billed as the new Tiger King, and Chimp Crazy is directed by the same filmmaker. Now the eccentric exotic animal owner featured in the series is claiming that...
This is Tonia Haddix, a woman who claims to love her chimpanzees more than her own children. Her story takes a bizarre turn when she's ordered to surrender her beloved primates to an animal sanctuary. But Tonia has other plans. She tells everyone that her favorite chimp, Tonka, a former Hollywood star, has died. She even swears under oath that she cremated his body. Nearly a year later, authorities make a shocking discovery in her basement. Tonka is alive, hidden away in a cage with his own TV and tablet. What drove Tonia to such extreme measures? And what became of Tonka after his dramatic rescue? Get ready for a wild ride as we unravel the captivating tale of Tonia Haddix, Tonka the chimp, and the elaborate hoax that fooled everyone. Tonka the chimp's journey begins in the glittering world of Hollywood, where he becomes a star in his own right. Born on October 5, 1991, the entertainment industry takes Tonka from his mother at a young age to work in films. This early separation from his natural environment sets the stage for a life far removed from that of a typical chimpanzee. In 1997, Tonka lands roles in two major motion pictures that cement his status as a Hollywood animal actor. He appears in George of the Jungle, starring Brendan Fraser and Leslie Mann, and Buddy, alongside Alan Cumming and Rene Russo. These films showcase Tonka's ability to perform on camera and interact with human actors. Alan Cumming, Tonka's co-star in Buddy, forms a special bond with the chimpanzee during filming. Years later, Cumming recalls, "During the months we filmed together, baby Tonka and I became good friends, playing and grooming each other and just generally larking about." After his Hollywood career, Tonka retires to the Missouri Primate Foundation. This facility, which breeds and houses chimpanzees for various purposes, becomes Tonka's new home. Moving from movie sets to a breeding facility significantly changes Tonka's life circumstances. It is here where Tonka will meet Tonia Haddix, setting the stage for the dramatic events to follow. Tonia's journey to becoming an unlikely chimp mom begins with her career as a nurse. She works in healthcare, dedicating her time to caring for human patients. Her background in nursing instills in her a sense of nurturing and caregiving that will later manifest in unexpected ways. The Missouri Primate Foundation, formerly known as Chimparty, is owned by a woman named Connie Casey. She operates a facility that breeds and houses chimpanzees. It serves as a supplier for the entertainment industry and exotic pet trade. The foundation becomes a focal point in Tonia's life, drawing her into the world of primate care. In 2009, a significant incident draws attention to Connie's operation. A chimpanzee named Travis, originally bred and sold by MPF, escapes from his owner's house in Connecticut and violently attacks a woman. This high-profile case highlights the dangers of private chimpanzee ownership and prompts closer scrutiny of breeding facilities like MPF. PETA launches an investigation into Connie's facility, gathering evidence of Animal Welfare Act violations and the overall living conditions of the chimpanzees. The U.S. Department of Agriculture begins documenting investigations into the welfare of the chimps at MPF. USDA inspection reports reveal concerning conditions at the facility, including poor sanitation, inadequate ventilation, and pest control issues. The reports also note failures in providing proper enrichment for the primates. Connie is now under the watchful eye of PETA for years to come. In 2015, the USDA issues an official warning to MPF for violations of the Animal Welfare Act. Despite this, Connie continues to operate the facility. According to PETA attorney Brittany Peete, Connie struggles financially, relying primarily on Social Security checks to run the facility. It is estimated that each chimp costs about $25,000 a year for care. Connie at a given time had 42 chimps. That amounted to over $1 million a year to properly care for all of them. Tonia decided she wants a change of pace from her day-to-day as a nurse. She initially approaches the Missouri Primate Foundation with the intention of purchasing a baby chimpanzee. This desire to own an exotic pet leads her to volunteer at the facility, where she begins to form connections with the resident chimps. She decides to live in a trailer on the property so she can care for the chimps full-time. As Tonia spends all her time at the foundation, she develops a particular bond with a chimpanzee named Tonka, the former Hollywood star, who captivates Tonia with his intelligence and personality. She feels a deep emotional connection to him, describing it as love at first sight. In 2016, PETA files a lawsuit against the Missouri Primate Foundation, alleging poor living conditions for the chimpanzees housed at the facility. They claim the chimps are kept in unsanitary and cramped enclosures that fail to meet federal animal welfare standards. The lawsuit focuses on the Foundation's alleged violations of the Endangered Species Act. PETA argues the chimps are denied adequate social interaction, environmental enrichment, and veterinary care. They say many of the animals show signs of psychological distress due to their living situation. Connie Casey, the owner of the Missouri Primate Foundation, denies the allegations. She insists her facility provides proper care for the chimps and meets all legal requirements. Connie argues PETA is unfairly targeting her operation as part of a broader agenda against private ownership of exotic animals. As the legal battle unfolds, more details emerge about conditions at the facility. Former volunteers and employees come forward with accounts of neglect and improper care practices. They describe chimps living in small cages filled with waste and lacking mental stimulation. PETA presents evidence including photographs and inspection reports to support their claims. The organization pushes for the chimps to be relocated to an accredited sanctuary where they can receive better care and live in a more natural environment. The USDA is called to conduct an inspection of the property. The inspection reports reveal a facility plagued by filth and neglect. The chimpanzees live in enclosures smeared with fecal matter, surrounded by piles of days-old excrement. The stench of urine is so overpowering that it burns the nasal passages of inspectors. Many of the chimps are confined to what are essentially jail cells, repurposed from an old local jail, and are unable to access outdoor spaces. The lack of proper sanitation and living conditions leads to severe psychological distress in the animals, evidenced by self-harming behaviors such as excessive hair pulling. The nutrition and medical care provided to the chimpanzees are equally concerning. As documented in social media posts, Tonia often fed the chimps inappropriate foods such as McDonald's meals, sugary drinks, and candy. This diet is far from the balanced nutrition required for the health and well-being of these complex primates. Tonia's chosen veterinarian lacks specific experience with chimpanzees, leading to inadequate veterinary care. The facility also lacks proper veterinary records, suggesting they did not provide regular and appropriate medical attention. These issues, combined with the unsanitary living conditions, create a hazardous environment that fails to meet even the basic needs of the chimpanzees in their care. As Tonia takes on a larger role at the foundation, PETA adds her as a defendant in the ongoing lawsuit. The organization argues Tonia is perpetuating the alleged mistreatment of the chimps by supporting and assisting the facility's operations. Tonia maintains she has the chimps' best interests at heart. She believes they are better off in her care than at a sanctuary. Tonia begins speaking out publicly against PETA and defending private ownership of primates. Amidst the legal turmoil, Tonia sees an opportunity to help. She offers to take over the care of 7 chimpanzees from the foundation, including her beloved Tonka. This decision marks a significant turning point in her life, transforming her from a volunteer to a full-time caregiver. Tonia's son, Justin, observes the profound impact the chimpanzees have on his mother's life. He remarks, "I've never seen her that passionate about anything in my entire life, ever, and that includes her own son." This statement highlights the intensity of Tonia's devotion to her new role. Around this time, Eric Goode, the director of the popular Tiger King series, turns his attention to the world of chimpanzee ownership in Chimp Crazy. The HBO docu-series explores the complex relationships between humans and primates, focusing on Tonia Haddix's story and her connection to Tonka the chimpanzee. Eric's approach to Chimp Crazy differs from Tiger King in several ways. He aims for a more serious tone, focusing on the ethical implications of exotic animal ownership rather than sensationalizing the eccentric personalities involved. Eric seeks to present a balanced view of the issues, interviewing both chimpanzee owners and animal rights activists. The production of Chimp Crazy involves some controversial methods, however. Eric hires Dwayne Cunningham, a former circus clown and animal trainer, to act as a proxy director. This decision stems from Eric's concerns that his reputation from Tiger King might deter potential subjects from participating. Dwayne builds trust with Tonia and other chimpanzee owners, allowing the crew to capture intimate footage. As Tonia takes on the role of caregiver for the 7 chimpanzees left, she begins to refer to herself as the Dolly Parton of chimps. This self-given title reflects her flamboyant personality and her belief in her ability to provide a loving home for these animals. Tonia dresses and carries herself in such a way to garner attention from others. She changes out her wigs based on other people's opinions, which shows she constantly seeks validation. She wears bright colors and lives in a world of hot pink, reflecting her desire for people to notice her. This is all amplified now that she has been exposed to chimps in her everyday life. Unlike the subjects in Tiger King, Tonia's draw to exotic animals appears rooted in a desire for uniqueness and specialness rather than financial motives. Caring for unusual creatures sets her apart and provides a sense of identity and importance. The challenges and intensity of raising chimps likely give Tonia's life meaning and excitement. Additionally, the controversial nature of exotic pet ownership may appeal to a rebellious streak in her personality. Regardless, Tonia's approach to caring for the chimpanzees is unconventional. She treats them more like human children than wild animals, providing them with amenities like televisions and tablets. She believes she can shape them into being like her. The transition from nurse to chimp caregiver is not without its challenges. Tonia faces skepticism from animal welfare experts and legal hurdles from organizations like PETA. Yet she remains steadfast in her belief that she is the best person to care for these chimpanzees, particularly Tonka. But a storm is brewing. As PETA's legal pressure mounts, Tonia's world is about to be turned upside down in a way that will leave everyone wondering, how far will she go to keep her chimp family together? In 2020, PETA and Tonia Haddix reach a consent decree to settle the ongoing lawsuit over the care of chimpanzees at the Missouri Primate Foundation. Under the terms of the consent decree, Tonia agrees to allow 4 of the 7 chimpanzees to be transferred to an accredited sanctuary in Florida called the Center for Great Apes. She is permitted to retain custody of the remaining 3 chimps, including Tonka if she meets certain conditions. The agreement stipulates that Tonia must construct new, larger enclosures for the chimps she keeps. She is required to build an outdoor primadome structure with specific dimensions and a connected night house. These facilities will provide more space and a better environment for the animals. The agreement requires Tonia to hire a full-time chimpanzee caregiver with at least 2 years of experience, as well as a part-time maintenance worker and qualified volunteers. This staffing requirement is intended to ensure proper daily care and oversight for the chimps. The consent decree sets a 6-month deadline for Tonia to complete the new enclosures and make the required staffing hires. She must provide regular updates on the construction progress and submit documentation of permits and plans. But as the months pass following the agreement, it becomes clear that Tonia is struggling to meet the outlined conditions. She fails to provide PETA with the required updates and documentation regarding the new enclosure's construction. The deadline for completing the facilities comes and goes without Tonia fulfilling her obligations. She claims various obstacles, including weather delays and difficulty obtaining materials, have prevented her from finishing the enclosures on time. PETA grows increasingly concerned about Tonia's non-compliance with the consent decree. The organization argues her failure to meet the agreed-upon conditions puts the chimpanzees' welfare at risk and violates the spirit of the settlement. As tensions rise, Tonia maintains she is doing her best to care for the chimps and complete the required improvements. She expresses frustration with what she sees as unreasonable demands and timelines set by PETA. The breakdown of the consent decree sets the stage for further legal action. PETA moves to enforce the agreement and have all 7 chimpanzees, including those Tonia was allowed to keep, transferred to sanctuaries. This development marks a new phase in the ongoing battle over the animals' care and custody. In 2021, a federal judge issues a court order requiring her to surrender all 7 chimpanzees in her care to an accredited sanctuary. The ruling comes after Tonia fails to comply with the previous consent decree's conditions for keeping 3 of the chimps. PETA prepares to transfer the chimps to the Center for Great Apes in Florida. They coordinate with sanctuary staff and arrange for specialized transport to move the animals safely. Tonia expresses deep distress at the prospect of losing the chimps she considers her children. On the day of the transfer, authorities arrive at Tonia's facility to oversee the removal of the chimpanzees. 6 of the 7 chimps are successfully located and prepared for transport. The animals appear anxious during the process, with some becoming agitated as they are moved from their familiar surroundings. As workers load the chimps into transport vehicles, Tonia becomes emotional. She pleads with officials to reconsider, arguing that she can provide better care for the animals than a sanctuary. Officials ignore her protests as they proceed with the transfer according to the court order, however. The 6 chimps make the journey to Florida, where they arrive at the Center for Great Apes. Sanctuary staff begin acclimating the animals to their new environment, which offers more space and opportunities for socialization with other chimps. But a major complication arises when authorities attempt to locate the 7th chimp, Tonka. The former chimp actor is nowhere to be found on Tonia's property. His absence raises immediate suspicions and concerns. Suddenly, Tonia informs officials that Tonka has died. She claims he passed away from heart failure several months earlier, in May 2021. She says she found the chimp dead and had his body cremated in a backyard fire pit. She becomes visibly distraught while recounting the alleged death of her beloved chimp. PETA and authorities understandably express skepticism about Tonia's story, however, and question the lack of veterinary records or other evidence to support her claim of Tonka's death. They grow suspicious that Tonia may be hiding Tonka to prevent his transfer to the sanctuary. PETA vows to investigate further, unwilling to accept Tonia's explanation without proof. They begin efforts to locate Tonka, believing he may still be alive. But Tonia maintains her account of the chimp's death, insisting she has no reason to lie. She describes her grief over losing her favorite chimp and expresses frustration that her word is being questioned. PETA begins investigating Tonia's claims about Tonka's supposed death and cremation. The organization reaches out to veterinarians and primate experts to analyze Tonia's account of Tonka's passing. Tonia initially explains that she cremated Tonka in a backyard fire pit. She even states a specific temperature at which the cremation happened. She says that it was 165 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. This is obviously not accurate, as a chicken won't even cook at such low temperatures. Tonia is questioned about this, but she quickly rebuts with the fact that there was a typo in the documented temperature and a 0 was left off. The temperature is not the only issue, however. She initially claimed this happened in a fire pit, but how could she have such a precise estimate of how hot the fire pit was? Ultimately, PETA finds inconsistencies in her story and questions whether a chimpanzee could be cremated in the manner Tonia described. This fuels PETA's suspicions that Tonka may still be alive. Actor Alan Cumming, who co-starred with Tonka in the 1997 film Buddy, becomes involved in the search efforts. Cumming has fond memories of working with Tonka and wants to help locate the missing chimpanzee. He uses his celebrity platform to bring attention to Tonka's case and offers a $10,000 reward for information leading to Tonka's whereabouts or proof of his death. PETA matches this amount, bringing the total reward to $20,000. The reward generates more interest in the case and encourages people to come forward with any leads. PETA investigates Tonia's property and surrounding areas for any signs of the primate. They interview neighbors and search for evidence that might contradict Tonia's story about the chimpanzee's death. The organization also requests documentation from Tonia to support her claims. The search gains media attention, with news outlets covering the story of the missing movie star chimpanzee. This increased publicity puts more pressure on Tonia and generates additional tips for investigators to follow up on. PETA enlists the help of forensic experts to examine Tonia's property for any traces of a chimpanzee cremation. They analyze soil samples and search for any remnants that might corroborate or disprove Tonia's account of Tonka's fate. The organization also investigates possible locations where Tonka could be hidden if he is still alive. They look into other properties owned by Tonia or her associates, as well as facilities that might be capable of housing a chimpanzee discreetly. As the search continues, PETA and Alan Cumming keep the public updated on their efforts to find Tonka. They use social media and press releases to share information and maintain interest in the case. As search efforts to locate Tonka ramp up, the mystery surrounding the former Hollywood chimp star deepens. But a phone call recording is about to change everything, setting in motion a chain of events that will shock everyone involved. The search for Tonka takes a dramatic turn when PETA obtains a recorded phone call, a 28-minute audio where Tonia discusses Tonka's whereabouts and condition, revealing that the chimpanzee is still alive. The recorded call is between Tonia and Dwayne Cunningham, the proxy producer who had been documenting her life as a chimp caregiver for months. Their close working relationship had led Tonia to confide in Dwayne about Tonka's true fate. Initially, Dwayne hesitated to report Tonka's survival, believing the chimp wasn't in immediate danger. However, his stance changed when Tonia mentioned plans to euthanize Tonka due to alleged health issues. The contents of the call shock investigators and confirm their suspicions. Tonia reveals that Tonka is living in her basement and discusses her euthanasia plans. Dwayne, faced with this alarming information, decides to share the recording with PETA's lawyer. This decision, while crucial for Tonka's welfare, potentially exposes Dwayne's identity as one of the few people privy to Tonka's whereabouts. A more discreet approach might have been to anonymously report the information to authorities. Nonetheless, PETA now possesses the crucial evidence needed to take further action and potentially save Tonka's life. Armed with the new evidence, PETA quickly moves to secure a temporary restraining order to prevent Tonia from euthanizing the chimp. They also seek permission for a veterinarian to examine the chimpanzee and assess his health. U.S. Marshals, armed with the court order, arrive at Tonia's home in Sunrise Beach, Missouri. They conduct a thorough search of the property, focusing on the basement where Tonka is allegedly being kept. The tension mounts as authorities comb through the house. In a stunning turn of events, the authorities discover Tonka alive in Tonia's basement. The chimpanzee, once thought to be dead, is found confined in a cage. This revelation vindicates PETA's persistent efforts and confirms their long-held suspicions about Tonia's deception. The authorities immediately notice the conditions of Tonka's confinement. They find the chimpanzee living in a small enclosure within the finished basement. The space is drastically different from the expansive, enriching environment that chimpanzees require for their physical and mental well-being. Despite the confined space, however, Tonia appears to have made efforts to provide some comforts for Tonka. Reports indicate that she had set up a 60-inch television and had given Tonka an iPad-like device to watch videos. Nonetheless, the basement setup lacks the crucial elements necessary for a chimpanzee's proper care. Tonka has no access to outdoor space, unable to feel sunlight or grass beneath his feet. The lack of social interaction with other chimpanzees is particularly concerning, given the highly social nature of these primates. Veterinarians who examine Tonka note that he is overweight, likely due to lack of proper exercise in his confined space. They also find no evidence of the congestive heart failure that Tonia had claimed was afflicting Tonka. This discovery further undermines Tonia's previous statements about Tonka's health and her reasons for keeping him hidden. The shocking discovery of Tonka in the basement marks the end of his confinement, but raises new questions about his care during the months Tonia hid him. Authorities begin the process of preparing Tonka for transfer to a proper sanctuary, where he can receive appropriate care and potentially be introduced to other chimpanzees. Soon after, Tonia Haddix faces serious legal consequences for her actions. The discovery of Tonka alive in her basement directly contradicts her previous sworn statements to the court, opening her up to perjury charges, the act of lying under oath. The court takes a dim view of Tonia's deception. She had previously testified that Tonka had died of heart failure and that she had cremated his body. These false statements form the basis for potential perjury charges against her. The legal system fully recognizes the gravity of lying to the court. U.S. District Judge Catherine Perry addresses the issue of Tonia's false statements in court proceedings. The judge expresses concern over the deliberate nature of the deception and its impact on the legal process. In addition to potential criminal charges, Tonia faces significant financial penalties. The court orders her to pay PETA over $224,000 in legal fees and expenses. This substantial sum reflects the costs incurred by PETA in their efforts to locate Tonka and litigate the case. Beyond the financial penalties, Tonia faces the possibility of criminal charges related to her actions. The perjury itself carries potential prison time, with exact sentences varying based on jurisdiction and the specific circumstances of the case. The deliberate nature of her deception may factor into any potential sentencing. Throughout this process, Tonia maintains that her actions were motivated by love for Tonka. She expresses regret for lying to the court, but insists she was trying to protect the chimpanzee. With Tonka safe in his new sanctuary home and Tonia facing the consequences of her actions, it appears this extraordinary story has reached its end. But as Tonia grapples with the aftermath of her decisions, everyone is questioning, has she truly learned her lesson, or is this just the start of a new chapter in her controversial career? After his rescue from Tonia Haddix's basement, Tonka begins a new chapter in his life at the Save the Chimp sanctuary in Fort Pierce, Florida. The transition marks a significant change for the former Hollywood chimpanzee, moving him from isolation to a more natural and social environment. Tonka arrives at the sanctuary overweight, showing signs that his prolonged confinement has affected his health. The staff at Save the Chimps immediately begin a rehabilitation program to improve his physical health. They provide him with a balanced diet and opportunities for exercise to help him regain his strength. He now has access to spacious outdoor areas where he can feel the sun and grass beneath his feet. This change in environment allows Tonka to engage in more natural behaviors and explore his surroundings. To everyone's surprise and delight, Tonka forms a close bond with a chimpanzee named Caleb, whom the staff discovers is his biological son. The father and son spend much of their time together, grooming each other and sharing meals. Tonka also develops friendships with other chimpanzees at the sanctuary. He becomes particularly close with a chimp named Jacob, engaging in playful chases and other social behaviors. These interactions help Tonka rediscover his chimpanzee nature after years of living primarily with humans. Despite his age, Tonka proves to be quite the ladies' man at the sanctuary. The staff note that he remains very interested in female chimpanzees, showcasing a side of his personality that was suppressed during his years of isolation. This behavior is seen as a positive sign of his adjustment to a more natural chimpanzee social structure. Despite the legal consequences and public backlash, however, Tonia Haddix continues to defend her actions regarding Tonka the chimpanzee. She maintains that her motives were rooted in love and concern for Tonka's well-being. In interviews, Tonia insists she was trying to protect Tonka and provide him with the best care possible, even if it meant keeping him hidden. Tonia expresses regret for lying to the court, but stands firm in her belief that she acted in Tonka's best interests. She argues that her deep bond with the chimpanzee justified her actions, stating in one interview, "I would give anything that I had possession-wise up for that child. I would give my life for him." This sentiment reflects Tonia's intense emotional connection to the chimp. Now that her immediate court issues have subsided, Tonia is enjoying the attention she is receiving from the Chimp Crazy documentary. She is leveraging her public status by starting a podcast, offering personal video messages on Cameo, and planning her future with more monkeys. Tonia's podcast serves as her platform to share her side of the story, offering her perspective on her experiences with Tonka and what she claims is her truth, in contrast to the documentary's portrayal. A prime example of this disparity emerges in the documentary's final scenes, where Tonia is shown with visible injuries on her hand and ear, the latter partially concealed by a bandage. The documentary implies these injuries resulted from an encounter with another chimp following Tonka's removal. However, in her podcast, Tonia disagrees with this interpretation, asserting that the scene was taken out of context, and that her injuries were not chimp-related. Interestingly, while quick to deny the documentary's implication, Tonia remains vague about the actual cause of her injuries. This lack of clarity when faced with direct questions becomes a recurring theme in her podcast responses, leaving listeners to wonder about the full story behind her experiences. Tonia also expresses her disdain for the way the documentary was handled. She believes a law should be passed to require producers to obtain consent from the subject before making the documentary. In her podcast, Tonia shifts blame to the documentary producers for her legal troubles, claiming their decision to report her led to her need for an attorney and subsequent fees. She asserts that the producers, perhaps feeling guilty, purchased pictures and other items from her to help offset these mounting costs. Interestingly, Tonia expresses fear that the documentary will ruin her life, revealing that she pleaded with producers not to release it. However, her actions paint a different picture. Despite her alleged concerns, Tonia actively maintains a public presence, offering personalized videos on Cameo, a platform typically used by public figures to monetize their fame. Moreover, she conducts her podcast seated in front of the documentary's poster, a curious choice for someone supposedly dreading its release. This contradiction between her stated fears and her apparent embrace of the publicity highlights the complex nature of Tonia's relationship with her newfound notoriety. Tonia's future plans involving primates reveal a shift in her approach to animal care. Following Tonka's removal, she established a large-scale public safari on her property, offering guests encounters with a diverse array of animals, notably absent of great apes. This venture marks a transition from her previous role as a chimp caregiver, driven by emotional attachment to a more commercial enterprise. The safari likely serves as a means to offset the substantial attorney fees and PETA payments resulting from her legal troubles. Tonia's history in the exotic animal trade, particularly her past involvement in selling baby animals, raises questions about whether such practices might continue alongside her new public-facing business. In the end, PETA presents Tonia with a pivotal choice: forfeit her animal license and commit to never owning animals again, in exchange for waiving over $200,000 in attorney fees. Tonia's swift rejection of this offer, opting instead to pay the hefty sum, speaks volumes about her priorities. Her decision to establish the safari as a means to settle these debts underscores a deeper psychological phenomenon: identity fusion. Tonia's self-concept appears inextricably linked to her role as an exotic animal caretaker, making it nearly impossible for her to envision a life separate from this identity. This profound connection to her caretaking role may provide Tonia with significant psychological and physiological rewards, mirroring patterns seen in behavioral addictions. Her unwavering commitment to maintaining her lifestyle with exotic animals, even in the face of severe financial penalties, reveals the intensity of this fusion and its impact on her decision-making. Despite her legal settlement prohibiting her from owning chimps, Tonia's passion for primates remains undiminished. She actively scouts for new property, particularly eyeing an island for sale, with plans to establish a sanctuary. Unable to keep chimps, Tonia explores alternatives that might replicate the intellectual and emotional connection she once shared with them. Her interest has turned to orangutans, drawn by their comparable intelligence to chimps. This pursuit reflects Tonia's deep-seated longing for the mutual emotional bond she experienced with her former chimpanzee companions. On the other hand, Tonia's actions, while controversial, stemmed from a place of genuine love and concern for Tonka. She truly believed she was protecting him by keeping him hidden, acting out of a deep-rooted maternal instinct. Her bond with Tonka is so profound that she sees no other option but to shield him from what she perceives as a threat to his well-being. This level of devotion, while misguided in its execution, speaks to the intensity of her emotional connection to the chimpanzees in her care. Despite the pain of separation, Tonia demonstrates resilience in acknowledging that she will eventually be emotionally okay without Tonka. Her primary concern now lies with Tonka's emotional state, as she worries he lacks the capacity to fully understand the reasons behind their separation. This empathy for Tonka's feelings further illustrates the depth of her connection and her sincere belief that she knows what's best for him. Tonia's perspective, shaped by years of close interaction with Tonka, offers a unique insight into the complex emotional lives of chimpanzees. At her core, Tonia views the chimps as her children, and her actions reflect the lengths to which many parents would go to protect their offspring. In the end, Tonka's story serves as a reminder of the responsibilities we bear towards the animals in our care and the need to put their well-being over our own personal feelings.